Yeah. So let's bring in our next guest. Very happy to have you, Renee, who is the Executive Director for Indiana First. I guess, can you tell us about what it means to be the Executive Director for Indiana First?
Absolutely. I'm accountable for managing the operations and personnel for the program. I actually looked up my job title. What that actually translates to is I manage the sponsor relations for the Indiana First program, and so I cultivate new sponsors. I make sure they're recognized at events. I grow those partnerships, filter them down into volunteers. I manage databases in Salesforce. I create presentations and go in and talk to companies about the FIRST program. I supervise the Vistas and the First Senior Mentors within the state of Indiana as well. So that's kind of a very large summary of the small things, small list of some of the things we do.
Very cool. So this was Indiana's first year in the district model. Really kind of upset the table with the small number of teams that we had. We know of 2 more regions that are going to go for next year. 3 more.
3.
Okay, so you obviously know more about this than we do. Let us know what advice or what feedback have we gotten about the district model?
Well, one of the biggest things that we heard from our teams was the fact was about unbag time. So teams loved unbag time, and I think that when you're outside of a district model, you look at unbag time and you don't realize how valuable it was. But when you're within this model, we've heard from teams, and they were thrilled to have unbag time. They realized it was a very understood utility, basically. And then the other piece was that we got more matches. So in 2014, our average number of matches played before the championship was 24 matches for our teams. In 2015, before the World Championship, our teams played 41 matches on average. And then when we went to the World Championship, because of all that experience, because our students had 3 hours behind the glass, which is pretty amazing, we went to the World Championship with 14 teams. 9 of them advanced into the playoff rounds. 4 moved on to semifinal rounds, and that was one of our best championship showings ever. And the 3 areas going district is it's Chesapeake, so the D.C. region, North Carolina, and Georgia.
Right, I think you were probably thinking of the 2 other states,
Yep.
and then the region similar to MAR and Pacific Northwest. So if there are other regions out there thinking about making that leap, or other small states kind of like Indiana, we didn't have as many teams as a state like Michigan does, what advice would you give to them?
Well, there were 3 big things that made Indiana successful, which are important for other areas to understand. Our volunteer base, we have a very strong volunteer base. Our volunteers stepped up. We had people in backup roles. They were able to do dual work. We have 2 head refs. We have 2 different types of announcer groups. So because of all of those duplicates, it made it a lot easier and prevented burnout for our volunteers. Plus, we're really passionate here in Indiana, and they really stepped to the plate, and if something had to happen, we were all flexible, and we got it done. In addition to that, Andy Mark was our transportation sponsor, and with the new districts moving to this new model, we've been talking with them, and they've been asking questions about transportation, and I really didn't understand the value of what Andy Mark provided to Indiana First this year until they started asking, how do we store the field? How do we get the field from spot 1 to spot 2? What happens when, it's the end of the year? Where does it get, stored for the whole, other months it's not being used? So the fact that Andy Mark came on board to help with that was awesome. So you need a transportation plan and a storage plan. Then the venues. It's Indiana. High school basketball. So they love their venues. We have enough room to host our teams and have, 1,500 people in the stands. And that's where we're able to have our smaller district sizes, and that's successful. The advice that I have, though, is to start early with this planning process. If you want to go to districts, don't just say we're going to go next year and it's on. There's a lot of planning that goes into it. So set measurable goals and make sure each year you're getting that to those goals. Indiana started working on this 3 years ago, and we started, a second regional. We started building up our volunteer base, and it started expanding our off-season events into different venues to test try them before we went to districts. So I'd highly recommend doing that. The next one is talk to the other district sites and steal and research and visit and take as much as you can from them because you don't have to reinvent the wheel. I think that's great. And then find sponsors that would help with purchasing equipment. So Indiana, invested in a lot of AV equipment for this season, which ended up saving us a large chunk of money, and it's something that we can continually add to. And our students, we use them as a media team, and so now they get to learn those skills. So I think that that's kind of an important piece that there's capital involved, and if you don't have to rent that capital and you have a place to store it, it can be very valuable.
So we're going to shift gears here for a quick second. So you spent time as a first senior mentor, a First Vista. You developed the fundraising toolkit, which is available on the First website. What have you been able to learn from all of those different aspects and all of those different things throughout the First program?
Well, specifically related to the fundraising toolkit, I learned that it's really important for people to leverage their network, especially in my executive director role. It's all about me being able to go to meetings in the community so that I can expand my network, meet new people, and tell them about First. And so teams should be leveraging the networks of the students, the parents, the teachers, and the mentors who are part of that team. In addition to that, you need to send your thank you notes. Send your thank you notes to sponsors. And then there are some really cool fundraisers like the Flocking fundraiser and then RoboCamps that went really well.
Great. Well, thank you so much for being here. Congratulations on a successful first year in the districts.
Thank you.
Good luck next year.